Hello, everyone, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go. I am your host, Nash, and we are looking forward to Gameweek 9. In case you're keeping track, we have 29 weeks to go. How was international break for everybody? I hope it was well, and I hope you're ready for this weekend. So let's get into it. Our Saturday kickoff begins with the Merseyside Derby, Liverpool versus Everton. In the last 6 games, Everton have only beaten Liverpool once. They have lost 3 and they have drawn 2. We do not need to guess who the favourite for this matchup is. In the last 6 matches, Salah, Robertson, Jota have been the biggest goal scorers. In the last 6 encounters, all the Everton people who scored are now off the team. However, Calvert-Lewin is in good form, so you never know. This seems like an easy game to be captaining Salah. I wouldn't blame anybody if they did. Bournemouth versus Wolves. I'm going with Wolves for this one. Neto and Wang have been in good form, and Bournemouth are playing like relegation favourites. Them, Luton and Sheffield have been very poor in these opening game weeks, and are looking like strong favourites to go back down. Looking at the past 5 results, 1-0 to Bournemouth, 0-0, 1-0 to Wolves, 2-1 to Wolves, 1-1 to, it's a draw. These games seem to be tight, and Bournemouth won their most recent encounter and drew the one before that, so it might not be as easy as it appears to be. But then again, Gary O'Neill was a manager of Bournemouth the last time these two guys matched, actually for the last 2 games, and so he knows who they are, and he can beat them. Brentford versus Burnley. Brentford won the last matchup that they played. That was in 2022 when Burnley got relegated, I think. And Burnley won the match before that. These are 2 teams that both need a win. Personally, I'm hoping for Mbomo to get out of his slump in this one. Company's men have had recent results go in their favour, and they will be looking to continue that form. I still believe Brentford are favourites, but their recent form is a bit patchy. Let's see what happens. As always, Jensen, Janelt, Wissa, Mbomo are the key targets for Brentford. For Burnley, I would say Lyle Foster, and that's about it. Maybe Koleosho if you're being creative. It's true Burnley did get beaten by Chelsea, but it's a game they were expected to lose. This one should be closer. The next matches are Brentford, Bournemouth, Everton, Crystal Palace. Those are games in which they should be expected to get a result somewhere in there. As for Brentford, they have lost their last 5 games. They were beaten by Man U, they drew with Forest, they were beaten by Arsenal, beaten by Everton, beaten by Newcastle. They really need to shape up. I don't really consider them relegation favourites because the previously mentioned 3 promoted teams are dreadful. They do have Burnley, Chelsea, West Ham, Liverpool and Arsenal next. So they really need to get something out of this game. This is their easiest game. Man City are playing Brighton. It will be no surprise to you all that Man City have a favourable record against Brighton. Brighton have conceded 16 goals. Only the 3 promoted teams have conceded more than them. They are bound to concede, and for this reason, Haaland will be my captain. I'm hoping for a combination of him and Alvarez. And I'm praying for a clean sheet for Ederson. He hasn't kept one in a while. Brighton may have conceded 16 goals, but they've won 5 out of 7, meaning they're a good team. This also means that they're just outscoring their opponents. So this could mean that this will be a game with many goals for both teams. However, Brighton have players carrying knocks players who are injured and will be slightly weaker than we would want for them to be facing Manchester City. I therefore fully expect Manchester City to win this one. Brighton have won 1 in the last 5 encounters. They've drawn 1, but that was a game that closed the end of the season last season, so that one doesn't really count, and they've lost the rest. I am happy Estupiñán is injured because I would have been tempted to play him. Mitoma is doubtful, and so now I don't even know who will be able to do anything. But let's wait and see. The next match is Crystal Palace versus Newcastle. In the last 5 matches that these two have played each other, there have been 4 draws and 1 win, a 1-0 win for Newcastle. This shows you that these two teams play tight, and it's very closely matched even if Newcastle have the money. It will be an interesting game. Newcastle are the stronger side on paper. Crystal Palace are missing players. I'm going to bank on a clean sheet for Trippier. I'm going to leave Anderson on because 4 out of 5 draws means that there's a possibility that it could happen again, but also Crystal Palace are weaker than they usually are, so I don't know what to make of this. But I'm sure those of you who own Isak will be looking forward to a possible win if he is available because he was carrying a knock. After this game, Crystal Palace will have Tottenham, and then after that they'll have a good spell of Burnley, Everton and Luton, and they will be favoured in those matches. There is Champions League next week, so Europe is beckoning, so that means all these European teams may play a weekend side or a side with alternates, so be careful. Newcastle face Crystal Palace, Wolves, Man U, Arsenal and Bournemouth. So they have a tricky set of fixtures coming up, so plan accordingly, guys. Coming up next is Nottingham Forest versus Luton. I know this is where many of you are going to keep your Nottingham Forest keeper Turner on, and that is a good decision. Awoniyi is out, so they will still be struggling to create something, but a clean sheet is possible. Morgan Gibbs-White might be the man to look out for in this one. Head-to-head in this fixture goes back to the Championship, and I'm not going to use that data because it's irrelevant. When it comes to Luton, you know it's Morris. Morris is the only asset worth having in that team, and if you want to push it, you can have Lockyer. But that's about it. With Nottingham Forest, it's a bit tricky. Outside the goalkeeper, maybe Serge Aurier, because he's like a budget Trent. But outside that, Nottingham Forest is a bit of a gamble because their squad is so big. So, bet against Luton, but choose carefully. Nottingham Forest really need this win because after this they have Liverpool, Aston Villa, West Ham, Brighton, and then Everton. The next month is going to be tough for Nottingham Forest, so they really need this one. Every match is tough for Luton, so there's no need to look at their matches. The next match is Chelsea versus Arsenal. This is going to be quite an interesting one. I am hoping for Chelsea to surprise everybody and beat Arsenal. Arsenal are clearly the favourite. They are the better team currently. They're in better form and just surprised the champions. And the champions are much better than Chelsea. So there should be goals in this one. Just looking at the injuries that Chelsea have, just listen to this. Disasi, Chilwell, Badiashile, Chukwuemeka, Nkunku, Bettinelli, James, Lavia, Chaloba, Fofana, and Sarr. All those players are out. For Arsenal, only Timber and Trossard are out. So it's clear that Chelsea are not going to be playing their strongest team, but they are still a dangerous team. They can attack and they play hard and they fight. But the advantage should be to Arsenal. With Sterling scoring and Jackson scoring, Maybe this means that the floodgates have been opened and now they will begin scoring and being more consistent. Who knows? For Arsenal, Saka will be back. Martinelli is back. Jesus is back. They're pretty much back to how they would want to be. Maybe unless they're focused on Europe a little bit more than they should, especially since they lost in Europe the last time out. That could present an opportunity if a rotation of sort happens, since Arteta is being Pep-like. It will be interesting to see if Palmer stays on penalties and if he can play well, or if he actually plays in this game. Chelsea have a tough set of fixtures coming up. They have Arsenal, then they have Brentford, then they have Tottenham, then they have Man City, then they have Newcastle, then they have Brighton. Whoo! That is not, it's not going to be a good run for them. But they will fight. Arsenal, on the other hand, have Chelsea, Sheffield, West Ham, Newcastle, Burnley. A better run of fixtures, but not a walkover. Maintain your Arsenal assets and maintain your Chelsea assets for this game. Sheffield versus Manchester United is next. Sheffield are not a good team. They play well. Well, they try. They try to play well. But they always seem to become undone. And this game should be no different. Although they play Manchester United, and with Manchester United, you just never know what's going to happen. For Man U, a bunch of defenders are out. Wan-Bissaka, Martinez, Shaw, Malacia, Mainu. I just looked at the Sheffield squad. 10 players are injured. I can't even name you any of these guys, but 10 of them are injured, so everything is pointing Man U. The only problem is figuring out who will score. Will it be McTominay again? Or maybe this is the kind of game where Rashford will show up and punish me for having removed him for Son. It's hard to tell. I was just looking at their head-to-head. Sheffield won their last encounter in the Premier League, which is in 2021. They won 2-1, and the one before that, Man U won 3-2. So it goes to show that there are goals in this encounter, and given Onana is not the most solid stopper, it could be quite an interesting game. On Sunday, there will only be one game, Aston Villa versus West Ham. This will be a tough game. Without even looking at the head-to-head, I am going for a draw, 2-2 or 3-3. Having looked at the recent history, West Ham have won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of the last 7, and they've only drawn 2 of those fixtures. So maybe I was wrong. West Ham all the way. With West Ham, you know what it is. You have to think about Bowen, who else? Antonio, James Ward-Prowse, my boy Kufal, and on the other side, you have Diaby, Matty Cash, you have Mr. Watkins. There are many people here who can be quite dangerous if left alone. Aston Villa have really winnable games after the West Ham game. They have Luton, Nottingham Forest, Fulham, and then Tottenham and Bournemouth. So this would be a nice time to start getting into Aston Villa assets if you're planning your next few game weeks. Similarly, West Ham have, after this Aston Villa game, they have Everton, and then they have Brentford, then they have Nottingham Forest, and then Burnley, and then Crystal Palace. This would be a good time to start investing in West Ham players as well. The last fixture sees a London derby between Tottenham and Fulham. Tottenham are one of 2 undefeated sides in the Premier League this season, being Arsenal and them. Tottenham have won 6 of the last 7 encounters, and they've only drawn 1. I believe that trend will continue, especially under Postecoglou. Ange Ball is flourishing right now. They will have chances, they create chances, they attack well, they move the ball well, people move into space, and I think there will be goals in this one. Fulham are much weaker without Mitrovic, and they haven't replaced him. There's a hole in that position. Willian can only do so much. João Paulinho can only do so much. It's really now De Cordova-Reid and Willian holding everything up with Pereira. Those three are the most dangerous players for Fulham. For the Spurs, it's Son. Richarlison will have many chances. We don't know if he will score. I'm hoping for an Udogie clean sheet. And that's about it. After this match, Spurs have Crystal Palace, Chelsea, Wolves, Aston Villa, and then City. So the next 3 games will be increasing in difficulty until it reaches Aston Villa and then ultimately Man City. But until that matchup, I can see them maintaining an unbeaten streak. Fulham have, after the Spurs game, Brighton, Man U, Aston Villa, Wolves, and Liverpool. So it'll be a tricky run of games. Going into December, you could find them closer to the bottom of the table if these games don't go their way. I wouldn't be surprised if Marco Silva does not last this season. But then again, January is everybody's friend. And if they replace Mitrovic well, they will be okay. Also, everyone is lucky that the bottom 3 teams really suck. This week, I'm going to pretend to be brave, and I'm going to really consider not bringing Haaland on as my captain. I'll leave it to be a last-minute decision, and I'm considering having Son as my captain, since they have a favourable record against Fulham. Apart from that, I am not going to change my team much. I'm not bringing any transfers in. I am going with Edison in goal, Trippier, Anderson, Udogie, and Kufal as my defenders, Saka, Mbomo, Son and Sterling as my midfielders, Alvarez and Haaland as my forward strikers. Areola, Mitoma, Morris and Cash on my bench. I may make a late decision, but that is how it's looking right now. Looking at our league table, Why Are You Running is currently in the lead with 22 points. So it's up to Vic City, Simone Jua, and Mike Wow to try and close up this gap. Looking for tips? Listen to the interview we did with Leon Mortier. He will help you understand how he approaches fantasy, and it will help you. It was definitely a fun chat, quite enlightening. Outside that, I hope you are well. Let's let our players do the talking, and I will see you in the review pod. Happy weekend, guys.